Hello everyone again. So the big event really will happen on June the 6th, which changes the energy in that sense, turning everything into a new direction. And it will be about Uranus. Uranus shifting gears into a new hexagram. It moves. This is based on the teachings of the human design system, and links are always below in the description where you can do further research and follow up. This is the zodiac, and here you have hexagram 23 and then hexagram 8. Let's focus on these two. So Uranus has been in hexagram 23 for the last 2 years. 23 is disintegration, fractalization, versus 8 is unification. So this is a radical turn around. Here you have the hexagrams in their structure. It's pretty obvious, it's very pictorial, and you can read up on that. Splitting apart is something very unstable, which tends to cave in. That's what we have been experiencing really in our personal lives, in the collective, everywhere. It was that energy of everything pretty much falling apart. This will change into a different mode very dramatically, as now these fractals will be reassembling themselves in a natural way, finding union. This is super auspicious. You can read up on it more. So let's look at the astrology of this. This will be the final event short after new moon. But let's first look into the lineup of events which lead to that point. And I want to go back to that big solar flare I was speaking about in my prior video. If you haven't seen it, please watch it, which talks about the buildup of solar energy, which is at the core of that momentum which builds, pushes evolution into a higher gear. I found it super interesting that it has the same geometry as the key alignment I'm talking about in my prior video, the Jupiter-Pluto trine 120 degree angle, which is most certainly responsible for the sun's overdrive it is in and getting ever more deeper into through the next weeks. Just really be prepared. There will be some much bigger storms than we already have seen. Most certainly astrology speaks for it. So anyway, I found this interesting. It's kind of always like how it works. Big solar events are highlighting something else astrologically, and I'm usually guided to look at that. I found it a nice coincidence. So today, June the 2nd, as I'm recording this, the moon is at its perigee, at its closest approach to Earth, here at 16 degrees 35 in Aries. And on that note, the moon's ellipse, it's kind of an elliptical orbit it has around Earth, is constantly shifting. Actually, every 9 years it moves all through the zodiac, orienting itself differently. So this is super special that it is now perfectly aligned with the nodal axis this month. the lunar north node is the direction evolution moves towards, which is now fully exactly aligned with the moon's main geometry, which gives the moon super extra powers. The moon is our primal self. One could say it's the inner child in each of us. That's what the moon expresses, the emotional and also the different moods we go through. Much more basic than the solar self, which is more about the mental plane. So it is the deeper layers within ourselves which connect us with nature, which are magnified, which are amplified, particularly through this month, and the moon here in that big conjunction stellium with Hygeia, Chiron, Mars and Eris, all here within a few degrees, the moon actually approaching those in the next few hours and into June the 3rd, solidifying this energy, which is all about, the tenor here is healing. Exposing what's wrong, that's Chiron, bringing it to light, and applying healing. Mars with Eris. Eris is the energy which is all about the truth and nothing but the truth at all costs, regardless of potential conflicts and disarray going through these periods, and Mars naturally is the one picking up on that energy and really expressing in action what that means. So this is an intense Aries energy we are still in for the next big while, I could say, as long as the nodes still are in Aries, here the North Node for sure. So let's see what else is happening in the next few days. So then tomorrow will be the geocentric exact angle of 120 degrees between Jupiter and Pluto. Here is Jupiter at 153 versus Pluto at 153. Interesting here is that the moon at this moment will be pretty exactly aligned with Mars here at the end now of this sequence, which we just started with the moon's perigee of today. So kind of bringing that energy full circle. T-squaring Uranus here. Then on the 4th of June, on Tuesday, the Sun will be in perfect alignment with Venus. Venus at its superior conjunction, which means as seen from Earth here, Venus is exactly behind the Sun. So this is the culmination of the 20-month Venus, Sun, Earth dance, so to say. So the height of the Venus cycle. This is an important turning point, as Venus will be reborn through the next 2 weeks as a evening star now, as after having been a morning star for 10 months. Always a big shift of energy. As a morning star, what we are just ending this phase, it's more about personal evolution, so to say, versus So means it's more Venus is more expressing the Taurus side of its rulership, and when it moves into evening star position, means it's starting to be seen after sunset. That is its Libra expression, which is social, integrative, finding the union, the harmony within the group. That's the focus. So interesting in this chart is that again Mars and Aries is here highlighted at the 7th house cusp this time, which also is all about expressing, interacting with the world, with all that stellium we talked about just in the 6th house of service, health, healing, finding solutions in a very methodical way. Pluto at the 4th house cusp, fueling, pushing the change. Also vertex here with Uranus, the moon in applying conjunction to Uranus here. There's some intensity in this chart. One can definitely see that immediately. And again, this is just the beginning of a whole new episode of how Venus will express herself. Then a day later, new moon on the 6th of June, here in the 17th degree of Gemini. And naturally Venus is an integral part of this new moon. So this is reinforcing even more strongly what I just said. And the 17th degree of Gemini, I just want to read you this quickly here out of the Sabian symbols. The head of a robust youth changes into that of a mature thinker. Rudyard's comment, what we see pictured is the transformation of emotions into mind, of instincts into thoughts, a process of mental metamorphosis. Beautiful. So that is that Gemini energy at its best. Gemini naturally the sign of Mercury, and Mercury here coming out of a conjunction of Jupiter. A very particular signature of this chart is the black moon here, the collective shadow, so to say. That's where the moon is farthest away from Earth. At the ascendant, really giving the main feel of what is coming in the next few weeks, how we will experience this time. It will be rather unveiling, I would say, because the shadow is coming to the forefront. And it is interesting that the black moon moves actually at the pace of about 3 degrees per month. Will have its exact opposition to Neptune, right when Neptune will station at 29:55. Right short before entering the new sign Aries at the very end of the zodiac on the 29th of June. So this is kind of another culmination point we are moving toward. And actually Saturn will station turning backwards into resolution mode, so to say, just 3 days later on the 2nd of July, but more of that soon. So shortly after new moon, you see it's new moon is 12:37 p.m. on the 6th, 4:28, 4 hours later, in the heliocentric geometry, Jupiter enters Gemini. Here you have it. Now let's look at the geocentric chart of that moment. And you see this is just hours after new moon and this beautiful configuration of Sun, Venus and Moon. Jupiter in Gemini naturally is fueling the mind, helping us to see all the different aspects, the array of different opinions, understandings of reality, this kind of a spectral energy. It can be definitely very confusing at some level, but it is a necessary process to go through in order to understand the multidimensionality of reality. And then, as I already introduced a few minutes ago, this is the final station then of change when Uranus enters the hexagram of unification, coming out of the last big phase of this array of disintegration. Now this chart is super interesting and important. You see here again, this is the one we are focusing on, Uranus. Again we have the Moon, Venus, Sun conjunction, the new moon in Gemini, reinforcing all what I just said about the mental plane being super magnified, the ability to see through deception and all the different agendas, and through seeing all that, finding unification. Juno has been highlighted quite strongly lately by many solar flares were directly pushed into that direction. Juno is all about unification, working together, teamwork, partnership, you name it. So this is definitely now being helped by the new Uranian energy. And Uranus naturally is super important as it's the dispositor of Pluto, Pluto being the energy which removes what is not necessarily good anymore and makes space for something new to blossom, a whole new way of living. That is what is in the making for the next 20 years or so. That's how long Pluto will be in Aquarius. This is all just starting. And naturally the negative side is all the AI energy, but that has to be really coming into a balance which is in tune with nature at large. That's where we're working toward. So the heliocentric moment of a chart of that same moment shows even more clearly, yes, it is all about Mercury, about the understanding of reality in a new way. Well, I could say lots more about this chart. Again, if you want, you always can stop the video and take screenshots and then look at the charts yourself more deeply. it's definitely worth doing that. Meanwhile, thank you for joining, listening, and tuning in, and wishing you all a wonderful month of June. Bye bye.